Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to another episode of IoT Tuesday. This is usually Samuel Trani. Yes, I know it's been ages since I came your way with an episode. Yes, the whole issue with my laptop, creating content, the time changes, lots of stuff going on. But yes, we're back. New laptop, there's a lot of content, all the way from Microsoft Build to other events that I've attended. Lots of content that I wanted to share with you guys that that I just had to wait for um new laptop to coming. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Um we got a new laptop, so which means we'll be definitely getting a lot of content coming out for you guys. So today, as we almost always do it. Um, Today is the last Tuesday of the month. So technically, what happens the last stream days of the month is I come online and then I literally just we do an AMA or ask me anything. So if you have any questions, um, specifically on for today's session, which is IoT, if you have any questions on IoT, you can ask me and I'll try to answer that. But in between that, like whilst the AMA is going, I try as much as possible to do something whilst AMA is going so that I'm engaged and you can ask the question. So, um, our very last stream before we went off air, I was talking about, we were actually on using the NRF 7002 from Nordic Semiconductors. We're actually working with this development kit. Um, that is what we're doing the topic on for those who didn't. We're working on setting it up and all that. We didn't finish that, so am I holding it well? No, I'm not holding it well. So that we will let's see if I can get this focused a bit. Take it closer. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get the camera to. Yeah, there you go. So we would come back to that. We would come back to that once we're done. I mean, after today. Today is mostly ask me anything. So let me know where you're joining me from. You can put in the comment section. I believe with the only exception is Facebook and LinkedIn, but I can see pretty much. I can see all the chats in one space. So what have I been up to? Yes, apart from, like I mentioned, apart from the, how do we call it? Apart from the laptop issues where, I didn't have laptop to get a lot of contents, there's been a lot of things going on, few side projects and things that I've been wanting to work on. But today in particular, I want us to talk about AI, LLMs, MCP, A2A, all the buzzwords when it comes to AI, and then how we can connect that to IoT or how that relates to IoT. For the most part, using AI in IoT is not new. In the areas of predictive maintenance, in the areas of analytics and information, it's not new, right? Leveraging that in leveraging AI in IoT, that's not new. However, it is the infusion of all these LLMs, language models, agentic frameworks, MCPs, and all that. Where do we see the value? The conversation is where do we see the value when it comes to IoT pipelines or IoT infrastructure? Yeah, I'd like to give a good shout out to the Microsoft Azure IoT operations team. There's an update that was recently pushed out. Yeah, I'll be doing a whole series on um, Azure IoT operations separately. Um, but today we're just trying to answer questions on that. So once you want to bring all your questions concerning IoT, AI, MCP, agent to agent, I'll be glad to answer that. But in the meantime, I would um, briefly talk about my thoughts on where all these AI agentic things play a role in IoT. So like I mentioned, IoT in the areas of predictive maintenance, insight, analytics can benefit from, from IoT. For example, we have a product that is leveraging some AI on the edge, our crowd sourced sensors, right? Crafted climate crowd sensors. So what we're doing is that you're processing the data on the edge. You have trained models that are pushed to the edge that are able to do inference to be able to, detect if there is an, if the air quality is abnormal, or if there is some forecast of what, so you can process that on the edge. That's like mostly as far as we go with leveraging AI, right? Autonomous systems. So some people will say a relay or reactive system. So, for example, you have a sensor that is recording your the temperature, humidity in your room, and based on setting parameters or thresholds, you are telling, hey, your air conditioning to turn on, to just make or balance the temperature in the room. In some cases, if you have an actuated or mechanized window, if the air quality in the room is quite bad, you might want to say, hey, maybe it's time for us to open the window to allow some fresh air to come inside, right? So that would be another use case for that. Now, in all that space, right? In that space, you're looking more on event based, right? So someone will argue, but there isn't any AI in that side, right? Someone would argue. But what the benefit then comes to is that over time, you you want to analyze and understand what has become normal, what has become abnormal, what has become accepted, and all that. And that's where I see some of these benefits coming. But now let's look at the interaction. Today, if you wanted to look at some of these data, right, from your sensors, from IoT, from it could be a factory assembly line, it could be a digital twin, right? Depending on how that is set up, you would potentially, right, go to the dashboard, or you have some tool to say, hey, what's the temperature, right? And then you look at the temperature and all that. Now, if we wanted to add some kind of AI to the mix and have LLMs in the middle, then you are introducing that factor into it. Now, one thing that maybe just to simplify is that the introduction of LLMs and a lot of AI agentic frameworks is just to be able to do that advanced natural language processing, conversational way, right? Instead of trying to do just like you have an utterance, you're trying to extract the intent to understand the entities, and then LLMs make it very natural, like a more conversational way, right? So putting that in, coincidentally, I was on a workshop today with Blues, who happen to be our communication partner for Crafted Climate, and they are talking and thinking about the same thing of using MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, right? Now, MCP by Anthropics last year, simply put, they're saying that it is the USB to AI or large language models, right? In the sense that today, if you wanted to communicate or have your AI do other things apart from the data set it is grounded on, you would have to use APIs, right? But imagine if there are 10, 10 activities or 10, endpoints, that would be 10 different API calls, right? So what MCP does is makes it easy for you to discover all the tools or actions you can do and readily make it available for the large language models or AI to seamlessly integrate and use it rather than having to use other protocols to API calls and translation and all. That's what MCP does for us, right? So I see a fusion, right? I see a fusion where imagine you have a fleet of air quality monitors, right? And you have an MCP server, which will be able to connect to all these sensors, a fleet of sensors, all right? And then you can now have a conversation with it, with an agent. Hey, what is the average temperature across board? What's the average air quality? Right now, you'll be able to do that thanks to the infusion of Model Context Protocol (MCP) and stuff like that. And now you can even build agentic. You can build agent, right? An agent to get the average air quality. Let me give you an example. So today, if you're in Ghana, or I can speak about Ghana because that's where I've seen. If you go to the EPA's social media channel, especially Instagram, right? And you want to see the the air quality report, right? They send it, and I chanced on how that was done. It's not automated, right? The data comes, someone sits, prepares that diagram, and pushes it. Let me see if I can share this so that our session is not just like, let's bring this here, so that our session is not just a bunch of talk and all that. So let's see. I'm trying to see if I can. I think this is fine. Yeah. So let's do this. Let me show you this so that it doesn't look like. So if you go to Instagram, and I think we look for, let's look for EPA Ghana. So let's see, Ghana EPA. I'm trying to remember the here you go, EPA Ghana, right? Now, if you go to here, yeah, and that's it, there's 2025 AQI. Now, if you go to EPAQI, right? This is 21st February. Okay, no, this is, I think, the whole of. So what's happening is that this is how they present the AQI, right? So this design, like I'm saying, someone designs it and they're using the color code based on the air quality index, right? So they do this and someone posts it. They do this and someone posts it. Now, great. Now, what if we could automate this processes using agents, right? So that is where this is where I see some of the advantages coming from. So you would have something like an agent that generates this graphics. You would have an agent that retrieves the air quality. So the air quality, the data agent will retrieve the air quality, send it to this graphics or the design agent or the flyer agent or the notification agent, and then it will use that data to build this graphics, and then you have another agent that will do the posting, to all the social media handles, right? That is where I see some of the benefit leveraging agentic frameworks or agent AI and model context protocol, right? So what I can do, for example, for let's say crafted climates right now, what we can do is to have an MCP server, right? And the MCP server can expose tools. So tools like getting the air quality, getting temperatures across, getting all the parameters that our crafted climate sensors give off, and also have parameters like doing over the air firmware update, over the air correctional function updates, right? All that will be in an MCP server that is discoverable by an LLM or an agentic framework or an agentic system or module that we build on top of it, right? And that said, we can now automate this process. So it takes away the time that someone would have to manually sit to use the data to generate the dials and do all that, right? Even if they're using macros, right? There's still some manual work they're doing today to get that established. And that is what I believe that um, what I feel that we can use stuff like AI and all these agentic framework things to to do that. Yeah, and yeah. So oh, so yeah, there's an interesting question here. So Alan says that is N8N going to be a replacement for Node? But I didn't even mention N8N. Well, so uh, interesting, interestingly, I would say okay. So I would say it's going to be a replacement for for how do you call it? I won't say it's going to be a replacement for Node-RED, right? Yeah, for those of you who don't know what Node-RED is, I believe I have a Node-RED instance. Okay, so N8N is an automation tool, right? You can use N8N to N8N to do a lot of automations, right? You can also use Node-RED to do automations, right? There are several ways of hosting them. You can host them locally, you can host them on the cloud, but they are all automation tools that you can use, right, to automate this process. So, for example, you can use N8N to have automated this process. And now the good thing is N8N also can consume MCP service. So it depends on your use case. It depends on your environment, how you want to handle it, right? If you just want to handle it by saying, hey, I have a workflow that I want to automate, call this MCP server, and then you have the data. So one thing is that having an MCP server can allow you to do automations easily using N8N and other tools. So it's not just N8N, right? So let me show this. Let's go here to n8n.io. So this is N8N, right? It's a visual canvas, or what you call it's a no code, low code way of building automations, right? It could be it's different kinds of automation, but they also have the ability to do AI and agentic automations, right? So it's able to do that. Now, Node-RED is also another tool that can be used to do some kind of complex. It's also like a visual programmer or designer, right? It also has a similar UI where you drag and drop, connect nodes to it, right? Um, let's see, not Node.js. Yeah, so this is also Node-RED. Yeah, it's also like it's a visual programmer, right? That you can also drag and drop node and connect and do automations. It has some MQTT brokers and stuff like that. You can actually even deploy it on a Raspberry Pi as well. Now, one of the things I want to try, which I will show you just a sec. Let me bring is I want to run a local MCP server, right? On one of my Raspberry Pis. I think this is a Pi 5. So on the Pi 5, which is in this M2 Argon case, right? So run a Node-RED, run an MCP server here. And what the server will do is that it will connect, it will be the connection point for my crafted climate hub. That means that it would, so primarily look, MCP servers are primarily under the hood a bunch of ways to expose API endpoints, right? So you can export all your API endpoints and abstract it onto an MCP server. And then I can now point either a localized LLM or a deployed LLM in the cloud to talk to this MCP server and get and get the data. That's one thing I'm planning to do, just to test out a lot of this theory of viability, right? So I would have the MCP server hosted, pointed to the crafted climate endpoint, right? And then what would happen would be we can now create an agent, right, to call the LLM to interact with it. So to answer to answer your question, Arnold, I don't think it will be a replacement. It will probably rather be a complement, right? Or depending on the automation, but ideally, both can do similar things. But N8N has a far more, it has a lot more. How do you call it? It has a lot of functionalities compared to Node-RED. Node-RED is equally good if you just want to stick to events and stuff like that and just do you can use Node-RED. But N8N has a full flag. You can decide to deploy them locally. I have both an N8N and a Node-RED local instance running on my machine in a Dockerized environment. So for those that are worried, oh, do we need internet to do it? Both N8N and Node-RED, you can run them locally using a Docker container. Let's see if I can start my Docker container and run this. Yeah, I don't want to bedding stream. But so that would answer your question. So um the other thing that I want to also talk about is a lot of conversation around um this new version. All right, we'll not do the update on this. So the addition of the so I don't say so. The addition of the AI agent makes it looks like Node-RED on steroids. Yes. So it's more or less like Node-RED on steroids. It can do a lot of things. It can do MCP agent. Look, they've done some updates. Anything is crazy. So not to be biased, right? So, and for a lot of reasons, and this is the reason why if I had to do another automation, because a lot of people will say that, oh, Sam, so you will know that you probably say Power Automate or Copilot Studio, right? Now, the reason why I'll use anything instead of Copilot Studio or Power Automate is that if you have a use case that is heavily compliant in terms of regulations and data sovereignty, and I don't want it to be in somebody's cloud. I don't want it to be. These are tools you can use to deploy locally to achieve almost the same results in your own infrastructure. So institutions and people that want to do automations, agentic automations and all that, and don't want to worry about, oh, it doesn't have to be in this cloud. These are the tools you can use, right? And this is an example here. If you look at my images, I have you know what? I think my Node-RED. I'm going to run my Node-RED. So yeah, so this is a local Node-RED instance which I have on my laptop. Having actually, I just set it up. I've not done any work yet here, but as you can see, it's also a visual canvas, right? Um, it's a visual canvas again, as you can see, that allows me to create. So drag and drop. So they have debug, complete, try catch. You can have their functions, switch, statement, range. You have templates, delay, triggers. In network, you have MQTT in, MQTT out. It does like WebSocket. So it's almost the same thing. If you want to pass HTML, pass JSON. So like you drag them, and then they have like you see, they have like nodes. So you connect them, right? Maybe I want to connect this to a switch, and then once it's done, I want to connect this to, let's say, um, I want to do a split or something. So it's like the graphic, and I'm just putting this here just as a dummy, as a dummy example. So this is Node-RED. I can see this is running locally on my machine. This is equivalent to if you wanted to host it into your own environment and all that. Now, one test that we can do is to deploy everything on the local side and test it. So I'm going to connect a local, let's say, sensor, deploy the MCP locally, connect with it, either with Node-RED or N8N, and then deploy Olama locally, or I can use Azure Foundry local, to interact with it and see how we can. So you don't need to necessarily write complex um, complex logical calculations to calculate like analytics and all that. Thanks to AI, you can now do that seamlessly without necessarily having even to worry about knowing the right calculations or formula to use when you're interacting with your IoT infrastructure, right? And today, one of the things that Blues Wireless pointed out was that they are also considering adding MCP servers to their offering in the long term, but in a way that can allow you to easily uh, interact or set it up. So in today, they showed an example where you can actually connect. And I'm yet to test that. Once I test that, I can show it in maybe another episode. So because they just showed it today. So you connect a node card to it, right? And then you deploy an MCP server, a Blues MCP server that is able to help you even do firmware updates by just like conversationally, is there an update, is there a new version of the firmware for the connected board? And then it went ahead to check and say, hey, there is an update. This is the current version you're running. There is an update, and you can run the updates. And it also shows you, how do I set it up? How do I get some information? So it removes the barrier of really having to detail, like have to probably write code to achieve certain things. Now, thanks to the MCP server and the interactions, you can easily set up or update and use your your node card, right? So this is node. I'm going to close it and I'll stop the container. Then I also show you any10. I've not done anything on the any10, but I'm going to show you that. So let me run my terminal and have a cheat sheet somewhere. Where's my cheat sheet? I have a Jota. I have a Jota cheat sheet. So run the Docker. So like I said, so this is all running locally on mine. So my AI, I'm running a local AI on Llama, Azure Foundry local. So I have a distilled or minified version of LLMs that I can use to build and test all these things. Now you can build MCP servers in Python, in JavaScript or TypeScript, right? All works fine. So let's open this. Let me actually copy this. There you go. I've had instances where for some reason it will say, oh, there's an issue, there's a tunneling issue. Now, all this is running locally. Hello from Charles. Welcome, 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 Charles. Where are you joining us from? Welcome. This is your first time you're joining us on IoT Tuesday, where we're learning about using IoT, AI, agent, LLM. That's what we're talking to. Today is Ask Me Anything. So you can ask me any questions you have about IoT, integrating with AI, agents, MCP, and all that, right? Yeah. So welcome, Charles. So again, this is all local, guys. It's local host, right? I'm just tunneling so that I'll be able to do automation. So if I should leave this machine running, it's tunneling. If I should leave this machine running, I can now do automations through like WhatsApp. Like for example, they have integration where I could even now go start from WhatsApp and say, hey, what's the air quality in my location or whatever location, right? And then I can create that integration thanks to the MCP servers that I can host in any10 or any other platform. It will call out to the crafted climates data set or data source, pull that information, prepare it, and bring it back to me, in a WhatsApp conversation. And WhatsApp is just an example. Okay. So here, as you can see, um, let's see if we can start up an example. I don't want to try to go through stuff. I just want to show you that it's almost similar to Node-RED, but like as Arnold said, it is like Node-RED on steroids. That's like those are the two different. So if you see here, so here it says start by saying hi, right? Now it's so this here now. If you do automation, I've been learning about automation. A few things one thing you need to know is that automations always begin with a trigger, right? It could be a message, it could be an action, it could be an event, right? So here they're starting with a chart. Again, it could be a chart to say, I want what is the air quality in Accra or in a particular location, right? And then we'll go ahead and do that. So here, I would have to configure it, right? I'd have to configure this to use, I have to create a credential connected to my, how do you call it? Connected to my chat GPT, or if I'm using any other model, I can connect it to it, right? So if I say create a new credential, it will ask me for the API key, the organization ID, like I would have to go to, how do you call it? I have to go to my chat GPT account and then create the API key, come and paste it here and it will be activated. Actually, let's see if I can easily do this here so that we can see. So the only thing is, like I said, remember, connecting LLMs or AI is to enhance the conversational, the natural language processing abilities of agents, right? Because gone are the days where we try to listen to your utterances, decipher what the entities are, extracted to try to figure out what you're trying to say. But with LLMs, it makes it very, very intuitive. So let me see if I can go to. So I'm just on my. I am on my chat GPT, right? On the other screen. I'm on my chat GPT on the other screen. I'm trying to get my keys and put it here. Because right now, look, if you look at this, if you close and we close out of this, see that it's telling you that we've not connected it to any model, right? This is an agent. We've not connected to any model. And here again, look, we've not yet built the MCP server for our climate data. I'm just expressing how we would connect to it, right? But eventually, what would happen is that we will connect it from the MCP server to it. And I see that benefit of leveraging AI and IoT and stuff like that. Now you're going to build systems that are more responsive, reactive, and feel natural. Like, your interactions with them will be a lot more natural. So let's see how. I don't want it to feel like we're doing an automation session. No, it's just IoT trying to answer questions. I just want to show you something real quick. So let's go to here. See, let's go here and let's see if I can get this out here. So let's go here. Go to API.GPT. So yeah, I'm already logged in. I just want to get a simple API key, API platform. So open API. I'm already logged on, so I'm going to bring that in. And yeah, don't forget, hey, if this is the first time you're joining, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the like, so that we can grow. So look for my API. So I have the organization ID. Let's see. So there's an org ID. So you know that when we are doing it, I need to provide, if I do a new credential, it will ask me for the org ID, the API key, and all that. So let's get the API key. So this is, I have an API key here. All. I would have to add another API key because the one that I created is view one. So I'm going to revoke and delete it and create a new API key. And I'll call this N8N. I'm not showing that because, all service account or project. First it's impersonating me. I can use a service account for that. But anyway, so copy this, going to API key, paste it there. The API key. And for the sake of, say, ChatGPT key, I'm just keeping it somewhere so that, and then we can go to general and let's open the organizational ID. Org ID. Yeah. And then we save this. So it says request failed. Oh, hold on. Save. Yeah, keys. Let me be sure that my keys are fine. Yeah, I mean, be sure not collaborating. What's the details? There's nothing here. Connections. Save this. Anyway, I'll close. I'll trash this later on. But I just wanted to show you how would have done that. So once you connect it, you have to connect it to some kind of memory, and we can use like a simple memory so that it has some context, right? So have that go back to the canvas. That's going now here. these are the tools that you want to make available to this agent. So for example, in this case here, we can add our MCP tool, right? So if I click this and I do like MCP, there's an MCP client, right? There is other tools. So here, if I say this is connected to an MCP server, I have to provide, the server sent event. That's the MCP server information. I'd have to set all that up. Then when that happens now, this agent would have now had access to an MCP server, right? That will allow it to go ahead and get the information from, in our case, our supposed crafted climate MCP server, and then bring it back to the chat. I know we've not connected a few of them, but if you say open the chat and I say hi here, it's not going to work because our agent is not configured, right? So yeah, like I said, I just literally installed these things. I'm not configured, I'm not set them up, so I don't expect. But it's today's session is not about setting up anything. I can do a whole session on setting up anything. It's just to express to you that this is possible, right? So yeah, um, so this is anything, right? And again, this is running locally. This is running locally, right? It's running locally. So don't get it twisted, right? So that's, for me, that is one thing that I see as one of the advantages of also leveraging. Um, yeah, and I see all this. Doesn't have any credentials for set open API. Anyway, yeah, we just stop anything. Yeah, and this is just to show to you that anything is running locally on my machine in a virtual, in a Docker desktop, right? So as you can see, all that here. Yeah, we can close this and save us some. Actually, we can do that later on. So yeah, so that is one use case of what I believe we can use to, we can use MCP and agent stuff on. So there's a homework for you, Arnold. And I mean, something we've been talking about, one of the things we always want to do is to be able to automate all of our processes. So especially the notification to the various social networks, we can leverage that to do it. Next, I want to talk about, I mean, still in the areas of IoT and still trying to do that. Whilst we're doing that, I want to also talk about the Nordic NRF 9151 dev kit and the Nordic Thingy 91X, right? So these, we are piloting something very interesting with this dev kit, right? It's not necessarily the dev kit itself, but then it is the connectivity module it has on one of the boards, right? So one of the biggest challenges when you're building IoT solutions is communication, right? Especially if you come from outside of the world where you literally, okay, outside of the world where sometimes access to connectivity is probably not there or even not good, and you have to deploy sensors, like in our case deploying low cost air quality sensors in setting remote places or places where there is little or no connectivity, or sorry, cell coverage. It poses a lot of challenges. So if you remember, we talked about the note card, right? I've been talking about this for a very long time. So this here, this is a note card, and this here is a note carrier, right? So the note card here, this is a cellular one, right? But they have different note cards and they do different connectivities. Well, the good thing about Blues is that I don't need to worry about whether it's MTN, Telecel, AT. I don't need to worry about any of those. They literally take care of that for me, right? So all I need to do is put it there, configure it, and wherever I put it, so far as if there is a good coverage from one network, it will do it. I don't have to put any physical SIM. Now, what we are testing on this NRF N1 Nordic N1 series dev kit is the connectivity module is piloting something. It's like a satellite, direct satellite to device. Okay. Now, let me break it down, make it very simple for you to understand. Normal telephony or networking or communication, right? There are masts or towers. So you see a whole mast with all the radios on it, cell sites, different cell sites, just to cover. So if you wanted coverage in a particular area, you probably put up a cell site and set up all these radios to connect to other cell sites to kind of like increase the network, right? Those are cell sites on the ground. The pilot we are part of and trying to test this with a lot of our the crafted climate series of sensors is this time around, imagine those cell sites deployed in low orbit. Someone will say like Starlink, kind of. But this is specifically kind of think of it as a cell site or mast in lower orbit space. So there's a company, piloting this with MTN. We are part of the few people who are going to test it out. Now, what that means is that now our devices can try to connect with cellular, with LoRa, and then if all this fails, it will fall back to satellite. So this means that you have a lot of redundancy built into your IoT solution that makes it a lot more robust if you have to, deploy in areas where you require connectivity and not have to worry about SIM card, buying data, switching. Like we have I'm going to pick on your MTN for this part, sorry. So we have gateways that are running MTN SIMs, right? And from time to time, we have to call the SIM so that they register the SIM as active. You have to like call the SIM, right? That's not effective and efficient when you're dealing with like a fleet of IoT devices, right? So that's something we are pioneering and we are trying out. We'll give you some updates on how that goes. Yeah, so just to remind you, this is IoT Tuesday. Ask me anything. We have a few more minutes to wrap up. I know it's quite late back in Ghana and other places that are watching me. If this is the first time, please subscribe to the channel. We do this, at least we try to do this every Tuesday up until recently where I didn't have a machine, but now I do. So we can get back to creating content. So we're going to resume the work on the NRF kit. We're going to do a lot. I mean, look, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff on AI integration with IoT and then also building cool IoT projects. Oh, I have an interesting weekend project that I will be undertaking that maybe I want to share with you before we call it a day. Hey, it doesn't want to open on. For all right, so this here is so what you're seeing here is an RGB light with a buzzer, right? So this changes now, and this is and I know someone will say, okay, what is this? Well, if you are like me, where you have to keep tabs on a lot of things, right? Emails, important stuff, and all that. You realize that sometimes it's hard to keep a tabs on when important emails come that require you to respond immediately, or things that require things that are due and stuff like that. So I decided to do a simple project that will be listening to my inbox and other things around me so that if I miss a notification or an important email, and I'm walking through the journey, right? This light will change to a specific color to indicate my attention, right? So if it is red, I know there is something I need to respond to in an email, or there is something burning because my sensors are picked it up. Like it's going to give me a visual clue followed by an SMS and all that, right? So it's going to be a very interesting project. Keep an eye on it, and yeah, we'll have some fun and walk you through, through that. All right, people. Thank you very much for staying with me. I'd like to remind you that we are in an era where AI is helping us, make our lives easy, and also helping us to be very productive and performant. It's high time you adopt it to be efficient and productive rather than fight it and be left out. So I'd encourage you to try it out, use it, play around with it, and hey, let's see how we can grow. Go check out Flux AI. They actually are helping you with AI to be able to build PCBs with ease. So you can see a lot of services are infusing it, and we don't want to be left out on that. With that said, I'm yours truly, Samal Adrani. I'll see you again on Friday for Demystify. Friday is going to be awesome. We're going to start the AI series, Azure AI Foundry, agent, and all the fun. So see you on Friday on Demystify Tech. With that said, stick and stay, be safe. And as I always say, let's make the world a better place. Yes, Charles, interesting. So don't miss my next episodes. So let's make the world a better place through technology in any field we find ourselves. I'll catch you again next week. I'm out.